Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. This one we're going over my favorite plays, and then we'll build a little generic lineup together for the primetime slate for tonight's game, the Eagles versus the Falcons, and then Monday night's game, the Browns versus the Jets. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. I will be here all NFL season long to answer all your questions, make content for you guys, and just try to help you out. And you can also find me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you'd like access to my extra content or my spreadsheets I build every week, links in the description below for my Patreon. And let's get into the video. So really, there's three interesting quarterbacks in this slate. No way I'm playing Trevor Siemian, but my favorite by far is Carson Wentz. This is the highest Vegas total of the slate, the Philly versus the Eagles game. The Philly versus the Atlanta game. So, Baker's in a fine spot versus the Jets. I think he bounces back. But Carson Wentz, he's got so many weapons to throw to. He's got Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Darren Sproles out of the backfield. It's a loaded offense, and they're going up against an Atlanta team that just really doesn't have much of a defense. Last season, they were absolute trash versus the quarterback position, allowed near the most points per game to the position. They can't guard the wide receiver position well. They can't guard the tight ends very well. They're horrible versus running backs. I think the Eagles should be able to smash here. Now, this is supposed to be a back-and-forth game. It's a 1-point spread, and it's a 51 over-under. So points are going to be scored back and forth. Carson Wentz had a rough start to the week last week, but he finished really, really strong. Completed 28 passes, 71% completion percentage, over 300 yards passing, threw 3 touchdowns, no picks. He does have rushing upside. He didn't really show it too much last week, but he can pick up some yards on the ground. He is a mobile quarterback, and he is healthy coming off the injury. So Carson Wentz is my QB1 for this weekend. I'd really try to get him in your lineups on this slate. And as for Baker Mayfield, he is coming off a terrible game. Now, I am a Browns fan, so it really hurts me to say this, but he looked awful. I know he had 285 yards, but he threw 3 picks, and they were really, really bad picks. And the Browns it did not look good. But this is a must-win situation for them. The hype train completely died last week, and if they don't win this one, they are going to get absolutely murdered on the media. And there is no reason they can't win this game. Trevor Siemian's they're going to be the starting quarterback. Le'Veon Bell's questionable. Half their defense is missing. So the Browns should be able to put up a great game here. I know they were 2.5-point favorites, and that slid all the way up to 6.5 after the Sam Darnold news. So I expect a big bounce game from Baker Mayfield and the Browns. So if you want to go with a more contrarian option, I guess Baker Mayfield is your quarterback. But I also don't mind Matt Ryan in the same game versus the Eagles, who, they got a tough. They don't have the toughest defense in the world. They struggle the most with their secondary, which is good for Matt Ryan purposes because he's got Julio Jones to throw to, Calvin Ridley, Austin Hooper. It's not the most exciting play, but Austin Hooper's there too. Mohamed Sanu, and then Devontae Freeman's there. So I don't mind Matt Ryan. He's just not my favorite play in the world. He had a decent week last week, over 300 yards, completed 71% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But that was up against the Vikings, who are a tougher defense. I don't mind Matt Ryan, but again, I prefer Carson Wentz the most out of all these quarterbacks, and he's only $300 more expensive than Matt Ryan, and it really shouldn't be a problem fitting him in. So let's just say we're going to put in Carson Wentz for right now. Then for the running back position, Le'Veon Bell is questionable. Derrick Henry just absolutely ate up this Cleveland defense. Now, I don't know if he's going to play. It sounds like he should play. The MRI came back clean. I know he wants to play, and he played every single snap of the game last week. I know there was concerns about his workload coming off of not playing a whole season, but he put that to rest. He had a pretty good game, scored 23 points. It wasn't the most efficient game from him, 17 carries for 60 yards, only averaged 3.5 per carry. But he did have 6 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown, had 9 targets. So if he's playing, I think he's a fine play at 7,700. It's just really hard to afford him with because I want to spend up on some of these receivers. So leave him. If he's in, it's fine. If not, Ty Montgomery is a decent punt option. His backup, he should be heavily involved. He's a capable pass catcher as well. But without Sam Darnold, I'm pretty low on this Jets offense, I will say. But my favorite running back on the slate is Nick Chubb at 6,500. There's no Dontrell Hilliard, and if you don't know who that is, he's the backup running back for the Browns. So Nick Chubb's pretty much going to play the entire game, and he's definitely capable of that. He's a 3-down back. He can catch passes. He's a great runner. Last week, when they were getting killed, he still had 17 carries for 75 yards, had 4 targets, 3 receptions, didn't do much with them. He had 10 yards. But he can do it all. He's a really good running back. He's very elusive. He can make big plays. He's not like some just guy that runs into the back of the line and it's really, really inefficient. He's actually a very good running back. and can make big plays. So I do like Nick Chubb at 6,500, and the Jets defense is decimated. CJ Mosley's out, Quinnen Williams is out, so it's not going to be too pretty for the Jets defense, I don't think. I think the Browns roll, and they should get a lead, and I think they let Chubb kind of ground it out in the second half of the game. So let's plug Chubb in. Oh, I already did. So I definitely love Nick Chubb. Now, the second running back position is kind of tough because you can do a number of things here. So Devontae Freeman's really cheap at 4,800. I know he did not have a very good game last week, but the Falcons fell behind early. Ito Smith got some extra run, but he still had, he had 8 carries, 19 yards. That is absolutely pitiful. He did have 4 targets for 12 yards, but I think things are going to go better in this game. Now, it's not the best matchup versus a Philly run defense. But still, at 4,800, I don't mind the price tag. It should be a back-and-forth game, and I think Devontae Freeman can find himself in the end zone. So I am going to plug him in just because I like the price, but I honestly don't mind if you want to. If Le'Veon Bell's in, I would maybe try to plug him in because he's going to get so much work. But I don't know that for right now, so I'm going to pretend that he might be a little limited. But I also think Miles Sanders in play. Sanders is in play. He played the majority of the snaps for the Eagles. I know it's kind of a 3-headed backfield with Sproles, Sanders, and Howard. But he's the best running back on the team. He can catch passes. I know that's more of a Sproles role, and Atlanta does really struggle with pass catching running backs. We all know that, so maybe Sproles is worth a flyer. But they're bad versus pass catching running backs, and they're bad versus running backs in general. Allowed some of the most points allowed per game last season. And they're awful versus pass catching running backs. That you have the most receptions every single year to them. So I don't mind some of these Philly backs, and Miles Sanders and Darren Sproles, not really too interested in Jordan Howard. He might find his way into the end zone, but other than that, not too interested. And like I said, if Le'Veon Bell is out, Ty Montgomery becomes probably one of the better values on the entire slate. Then at the wide receiver position, I am locking in the 2 big dogs in Odell Beckham Jr. and Julio Jones. So let's talk about Julio Jones first. He's going up against a Philly secondary who he is just massacred in the past few seasons. Every time he goes up against them, he just smashes. He's averaging over 100 yards per game versus them last season in the NFL opener. Julio Jones smashed the Eagles last week. He did not have a very good day. He had 11 targets. He had 6 receptions though, but only 31 yards and 1 touchdown at the end of the game to save his day. But this is a much better matchup. Instead of going up against the Vikings, now he gets the Philadelphia Eagles, who we all know is their main struggles come in the secondary. So Julio Jones should have a great day. I think you're going to have to plug him in your lineups. And then same for Odell Beckham Jr. There's a lot of talk about him, a lot of talk this week, and the coach Greg Williams for the Jets is calling him out. Odell's the kind of guy that gets hyped up about that stuff, so I think Odell's kind of a lock on this slate. He's going to be the main target for Baker Mayfield. They need to bounce back. They have to, or they are going to get destroyed nationally in the media. So, he saw 11 targets last week, had 71 yards, had a couple plays negated by penalties, kind of some iffy penalties there. So he could have even had a bigger day. I think he finds himself into the end zone. And Odell gets up for primetime games. He loves the spotlight. So I definitely think Odell is top 2 on the slate in terms of wide receivers. Him and Julio are just right there in terms of being the best wide receiver plays on the slate. And after that, I would love to fit in Deshaun Jackson, but I do not think I'm going to be able to fit him in. If I could, that would be awesome, but he's just a little expensive here. We know he has blow up potential. He can either get, he can get you 5 points, or he can absolutely go nuts and get 30 points like he did last week. He had a ton of work last week. He had 9 targets for 8 receptions, 154 yards, 2 long touchdowns. So that's what you get with Deshaun Jackson. I'd love to pair him up with Carson Wentz, but I don't think I'm going to be able to in this lineup. But just know I really do like Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey is a fine play too. It doesn't offer you as much of an absolute ceiling of Deshaun Jackson, but he can definitely get himself into the end zone. He had 7 targets last week, 49 yards, and a touchdown. He doesn't have the ceiling of Deshaun Jackson, but he probably has more of a safer floor. Jarvis Landry's fine. He was involved last week, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 67 yards. Didn't have a touchdown, but he's a key part of that Browns offense. Calvin Ridley is in play, the secondary option to Julio Jones. Jameson Crowder. Now, here's an interesting play. So, now this was with Sam Darnold playing. Now, I don't know how Trevor Siemian's going to do with Jameson Crowder, but Crowder's kind of playing the Jarvis Landry role with Adam Gase's offense, and we know how heavily targeted Jarvis Landry was with Adam Gase in Miami. So I would still expect him, Trevor Siemian, to throw to Crowder a lot, and last week he had 17 targets, 14 receptions, didn't even have 100 yards on 14 receptions. That's kind of crazy. Had 99 yards though. Didn't have a touchdown. So I think he's still going to get heavily targeted, even though it's Trevor Siemian's not a very good quarterback. So I do like Crowder at only 4,700. He's probably someone I'm going to be pretty interested in, and they're going to have to play catch-up, I'm going to assume, and I think Crowder is the kind of guy you want. Robbie Anderson, not too interested, versus Denzel Ward, who we all know Denzel Ward is, a budding star in the Cleveland secondary. He was the 4th pick of the NFL draft a couple years ago, or last year, I should say. And he's becoming a lockdown corner, so I'm not too interested in Robbie Anderson, especially without Sam Darnold. But Jamison Crowder should be a safe play, more of a shorter route guy, so you should look to him if he's under pressure, which I do think Simeon's going to be under pressure with that Browns defensive line and Myles Garrett, Arian Joby, Olivier Vernon, and Sheldon Richardson. So I think Crowder's a pretty safe play at 4,700. And at tight end, I think Austin Hooper is somewhat interesting. Not too interested in him, though. Dallas Goedert, he played over 50% of the snaps. He's got a ton of talent. He's only 2,800, so I do think he's pretty interesting. But the guy I like here is Zach Ertz to pair him up with Carson Wentz. That's his guy. I know Zach Ertz did not have a huge game last week, but he still had 7 targets, 54 yards. If he gets into the end zone, you were really happy. He didn't, but, chances are he's going to find the end zone quite a good amount of time this season. So I do like Zach Ertz and pairing him up with Carson Wentz, because we have to have one of Wentz's pass catchers in the same lineup with them. So I think Zach Ertz is the safe play there, and then Deshaun Jackson is more of the boom play, and Alshon Jeffrey is more of the safer play as well. Now let's skip to the defense. I'm just going to plug in the Browns defense versus Trevor Siemian. The Jets are kind of decimated right now with injuries. The Browns defensive line should have no problem versus the New York Jets. They should be able to get to Trevor Siemian. I expect some sacks, hopefully get some turnovers, and if you get a pick 6 or something like that, you're going to be extremely happy. I think they're the best defense of the slate. I know they got killed by the Titans last week, but we'll let it live. And then for the flex option, there's a couple options. If Montgomery ends up being the starting running back, I think that's probably the best way to go. Rashard Higgins is somewhat interesting. I know he's questionable, but I do think he should play. He was limited in practice, but if he's in, I do like him. He has a great chemistry with Baker Mayfield. The opening drive for the Browns, he had 2 catches for 46 yards. After that, he kind of got hurt, and he didn't do much else. But still, he's got a good chemistry with Baker. He always sees the softest coverage on the secondary because, obviously they're worried about Odell Beckham Jr., and then Jarvis Landry, David Njoku's there as well. You got to worry about Nick Chubb. So Rashard Higgins is kind of the forgotten guy, but he's a pretty decent receiver, Hollywood Higgins. He's got some talent, great chemistry with Baker, so I don't mind that at 3,400 if he is indeed playing. I obviously don't know if he is yet, but don't mind him. Not too interested in anyone else. Dontrell Hilliard's out, but I think Montgomery or Higgins in the final spot here. So if Le'Veon Bell's out, Montgomery's a much safer place because he's going to see a lot more volume. But if Bell is in, not going to be playing Montgomery because, Bell's pretty much the entire workhorse. He played every single snap last week. Then I think Rashard Higgins is worth a flyer. And if Bell is in and then Rashard Higgins does not play, you're going to have to restructure everything. And really, it's just a generic lineup I made on the fly. And I guess Austin Hooper's there. He had a pretty good last week, but that's versus the Minnesota Vikings, who were not very good versus the tight end position last season, and it looks like they're not going to be very good versus them again this season, as Austin Hooper is not that good of a player, but he still had 9 targets, 9 receptions, 77 yards. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video for right now. Let's just plug in Rashard Higgins, pretend he plays. So anyway, that's all I got for the video. I will leave you guys with that. I wish you guys the best of luck for the Sunday main slate. Fingers crossed for all of you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Remember, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.